Hello, we're going to talk about the function's domain. This is today's topic, domain. Okay. Domain, generally speaking, is for a function you have the input or the independent variable x and output, which is the dependent variable y. You have f of x equals y. And then the domain is talk about x, what x value can be. All right, now let's work on this question first. Find the domain of f of x equals 2 over x plus 5. If you have this function, then you need to worry about the denominator because you have the x in the denominator, and as we know that the denominator cannot be 0. So x plus 5 is not 0, which means x is not negative 5. So your answer will be x is the domain is all real numbers except negative 5. So this is the number line, and here's a 0, and here's a negative 5, and here's 5. So this point got to be kicked out, and your domain is everything else. So it's all real numbers except negative 5. And later I'm going to show you how to write this in the interval notation. So you see that when you talk about the domain here, you have to be very careful about the denominator. If you have x down there, then that cannot be 0. And then you solve for this inequality, and then you get the solution, and then so you know where the domain will be. Okay, so this is one example, one homework problem, right? And the other one, second one, f of x equals square root of x minus 1. We have the square root, so we got to think about, well, we want everything inside the square root has to be greater than or equal to 0, because you are not, in the real world, in the real number world, you're not going to take square root of a negative number. So you are going to have x minus 1 greater than or equal to 0. So you have x greater than or equal to 1. If you show this on the number line, here's a 0, here's a 1. So it's going to be 1 and above, and a solid point because x could be 1. So that's a solid point. All right, so x will be all real numbers that's greater than or equal to 1. That's the domain for this. All right, now what did you see? When we talk about the domain, you have to worry about several things. The first, this denominator cannot be 0. I just write it this way so you can remember. And the top can be anything. The second thing you need to worry is about square root. And this guy has to be greater than or equal to 0. All right, so that is the second thing. Okay. Right. So the third, if you have log b of this guy, and you remember that for the domain of the log function, this has to be greater than 0. It cannot be even 0, right? It has to be greater than 0. All right. Now what else? There's one more thing you need to worry about is the f of f, that type of thing, or f of g. This is a composite function. I'm going to talk about that later. For the composite function, you have to think about you get to worry about the domain of every single function of that. So, all right, so we're going to focus on this and this and this. Let's work on one example about this one. So that's the question number 3. Find the domain of this function. F of x equals log a can be any base. Remember, this base has to be greater than 0 and cannot be 1. A greater than 0 and a is not 1. That's the requirement for the log function. And here I have 2x squared minus plus, let's go plus 3x, then minus 2. Okay, so if I ask you to solve this one, I said, tell me what the domain is. you need to worry about, see, that's not in the denominator, it's not in the square root, and it's a log. So we're going to have a 2x squared plus 3x minus 2 greater than 0. All right, now the problem will change, right? Now we have to solve for this quadratic equation, this quadratic, inequality. And if you factor this, you're going to factor, that's x and the 2x. If you know how to factor that, so that's x will be 1 and a 2. That's a coefficient of it. And then later you need the factor of a negative 2. So it could be 1, negative 2, negative 1, 2, 2, negative 1, and then negative 2, positive 1. And then you cross multiply, and add up to positive 3. So you find this is the one work, because those doesn't work. So 1 times 2, this is not, so it should be this one. It should be this one. Okay. So 1 times negative 1 is negative 1, 2 times 2 is a 4. That's a 3. So you get x plus 2, here we go, x plus 2, and 2x minus 1 greater than 0. And then there are several ways to do it. One is you'll find the solution, which is negative 2 and a 1/2, and that break your number line into 3 intervals, and then pick a test number of each interval, plug back into this inequality to see which one works, then the whole interval should work. Or you can just go by, for this two solution, this is a, the coefficient of the square term is positive, so it has to be like that, right? It has to be like a open up, so it's going to be like this. All right, and then greater than 0 should be either this side or this side. Therefore, x is less than negative 2 or x greater than 1/2. Okay, that's your solution. Okay, so we did this 3 homework, and we practiced how to find the domain for a function, and those are the several things that we need to worry about. All right, that's it for the domain.